All right, it's exactly 2 p.m. Let's get this rolling. So, hi everyone. Welcome to another episode of Meet the VCs with Vertex, SEA, Southeast Asia, and India. Just for everyone's benefit, we started the webinar series to facilitate learning and development of the startup community in Southeast Asia. The Meet the VC series is aimed to help you know more about the VCs in our ecosystem and better understand how each of them look at opportunities and investments. In the meantime, I want to take this opportunity to talk about our Pro membership program, the E27 Pro membership. If you want to get access to our investor network and deeper insight on what's happening in the region, please check out our membership program. It's on the website. The program is designed to help you grow your startup, and we are focused on investor and startup matchmaking activities. If you are fundraising or looking to fundraise in the near future, the membership program will help you get connected to the right investors. So please check that out. Again, my name is Nick, and today we have Miss Carmen Yuen from Vertex, Southeast Asia and India. Vertex Ventures Southeast Asia and India, right? So hi, Carmen, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Hi, Nick.
Good. So thanks for doing this again with us. I just want to note that the session is recorded, and we will be sharing the video on our Facebook, on our YouTube channel, and also we'll be sharing the video on our follow-up article. So let's get to know you better, right, Carmen? So would you mind giving like a short introduction about yourself, brief history?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm privileged to be on this webinar. And also I hope that we'll be able to share more about Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia and India, and that the content will be beneficial and useful to all of you. So the question is really, what do we do in Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia, India, right? Like what Nick said, it is quite a mouthful. We seek to have the opportunity to invest in and work with driven founders. And also we want to solve tough problems using technology. But along the way, we also want to make money, lots of money if possible, right? So, so I've been at this journey for quite a while across a few organizations, starting with EDB Investments, then Spring Singapore, now known as ESG, and then finally Vertex. That was about 7 years ago. So what keeps me going on this kind of a journey? It is because there's a lot to learn. So in our life journey, we have all but one life. But the interactions that we get to make, the friends that we get to make along the way, I think that adds to the colors and value of our lives. So I've learned a lot from companies that I've worked with, how the teams deal with issues, how they have matured, how they problem solve. I've seen team dynamics. So it's still a learning journey. I will not say that I've mastered much, but it's because of all this information and knowledge along life's journey. So now when we work with companies, we are at a better standing, at a better place to share with them examples of companies, what had been done before, and what were some of the learning points so that they short circuit some of the learnings that they will have to do going forward. Yeah, so the idea behind Vertex is that we will be able to enrich our founders, that they will then in future, when they become successful, they can impart some of their knowledge to the people that follow the journey behind them.
Very well said. So thank you for that, right? I think you covered the first question already, like the main idea behind founding Vertex. Oh, you can share again, right? So I guess the first question we had for you, right, if you want to share in more detail, what was the motivation or the main idea behind founding of Vertex Ventures, SEA in India? And also perhaps a short history and what are the investment philosophies that you guys are adopting?
Sure. So Vertex, some of you might have seen this name before. So Vertex has been around since the late 1980s. In fact, we celebrated our 30th anniversary just 2 years ago. So thankfully, it was 2 years ago and not this year, right? Because this year it will be a simply muted celebration, if at all. So we used to invest globally out of Singapore, but knowing that you do need to exploit local teams for local knowledge, so Vertex actually had a transformation some 6 years ago. And so now what you see is actually 6 different groups within the big Vertex family. We have 4 early stage funds. They are managed by different managers, managing different pots of money. So there's a team in the US, there's another team in Israel, a team in China, and a team in Southeast Asia plus India. Besides that, we also have a healthcare fund and a growth fund. So the last 2 funds have got a global mandate. And so for clarity and simplicity, when we refer to Vertex Ventures, Southeast Asia and India, we call it VVSEAI, right? And the question is really, why were we so deliberate in putting Southeast Asia and India as a group? There were some funds that decided that no, Southeast Asia should be on its own, India on its own. But for us, we were quite deliberate in putting them together. And this was like way back since I joined, it was already as one. Why? Because we noticed that we have got quite a number of startups in Singapore that are actually founded by Indian nationals. So then the question is, are these Indian companies or are these Singapore companies? So in order to reduce this kind of questions and debate, we decided it's best to just put the whole region or the two regions together as one. And this has served us very, very well, I must say. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So you mentioned there are a couple of funds available. Could you share with the audience a bit like what are the current funds, fund size, and the profile of startups that each funds are looking at? Could you share a little bit on that?
Yeah. So we are very thankful that we have closed our fourth fund last September. And this is a $305 million US dollars fund. So we have just only started deploying it this year. And so far, we've already done 5 investments. We have a few more in the pipeline. And we are thankful that our investors for Fund 3, such as Temasek, Kasikorn Bank, have followed on into our fourth fund. So other investors include folks who are in the sovereign wealth fund side, as well as family offices and corporate offices. In terms of the profile of startups that we look at, there will be startups in the space of enterprise technology, so they solve more B2B problems. Companies or startups that are in the fintech space, given where we are seated, we certainly can do with fintech solutions and also consumer internet. We like to be the first venture capital fund into the companies. Yeah.
Okay. Could you also share so what is your average check size for a fundraise? And perhaps share on the latest round that you did, the recent one.
Okay. Yeah, so for the first round, we usually invest we can write checks of about 2 to 5 million for a first check, not an issue. Our principle is always to put a little bit in the first, and then when the company proves deserving, we will do follow on. So in terms of follow on, we can do like 10, 12 million. It's really not an issue. We do have sufficient firepower, so to speak. So an example is Instagram, now known as Neom. I hope many of you are using that platform to do cross-border payment. So again, it's Neom. And for Neom, we have been an investor in them since day one. So we were an investor in Series A, Series B, Series C, and now they do a Series C+. So we have been with them for every journey. And we have seen how they have grown from having a small presence in Southeast Asia, corridors between Australia and India, to now having license in 10 jurisdictions, which enable them to do cross-border payments across 60 countries. Yeah. And of course, I will qualify by saying that we don't do follow-ons for all companies. We don't. We are highly selective. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know. So how many investments have Vertex Ventures Southeast Asia and India has made so far? And how many are you guys? I'm sure you guys are planning to invest this year. How many investments are you guys looking to make this year? Just in 2020, I guess.
So across the 4 funds, so the most recent fund is Fund 4. So across the 4 funds, we have already invested about 45 companies. So as I mentioned, the 4th fund, we have done 5 companies and we have a few more in the pipeline. We are less guided by the number of investments. We are guided more by whether the investment opportunity makes sense, whether we can value add to the company. And so we go in depth into relationship building with the founders as opposed to numbers. So for this fund, it being 305 million, probably we can do about 30 companies, I suspect.
Okay, 30 in total or 30 remaining?
30, maybe about 30 more companies at most. Yeah, I can't imagine us doing so many. For Fund 4.
There's a lot of opportunity for all our companies out there still.
There is, yes.
Okay, so you did mention earlier that one of the sectors were B2B or enterprise solutions, right? Are there other sectors, or perhaps are you guys focusing on a particular fund stage? So sectors and fund stage moving forward,
Yeah, so we are primarily Series A investors, but for some of our India deals, we came in a little bit later. But now going forward, we are going to be more disciplined in trying to come in as the first venture capital investor into the company's share cap table. In terms of sectors, like I mentioned, it will be enterprise space, it will be fintech, and it will be consumer internet. However, what we do, and therefore we are always very busy, is that we actually have research efforts in-house. So we actually have theses that look at what are some of the investable area, and that will kind of like drive our investment themes. So for example, I think a couple of years back, we were looking at the insurtech space. So we did a deep dive across a few geographies. So team members from India, from Indonesia, from Southeast Asia, we basically just kind of like dug into the insurtech space. What were some of the companies that were invested? What was done in the US, in China? And we kind of like looked at the landscape in Southeast Asia and India, and we formed a thesis. So that was done. However, we had no companies at that time. So it took us about 6 to 9 months later when we, as part of our deal flow trips, right? So we came across a company called Sunday. Sunday is an insurtech company in Thailand. So when we saw that company, it met or it qualified based on what we were looking for in our insurtech report that was done like half a year ago. So when we met the company, it was quite a quick deal because we knew this company had what we were looking for. And so the investment decision or the investment journey was kind of quick. And therefore we were also able, I mean, thankfully they were quite happy with having us as an investor. So we were able to very quickly become their Series A investor. Yeah.
Nice. Sorry, we had some issues with the slide, so we're going to adjust this a little bit. Oh man. Okay. Sorry, just give me a moment. Okay. Okay, so I don't want to take up. So the next thing I have for you is, I am sure we have a pool of seed stage companies within our audience, right? And I guess some of them are wondering, is there something that we can do with Vertex Venture Southeast Asia in India, or what would you advise them to do at this point in time?
As in, if they are the founders, what kind of quality do we look for in the founders? I guess.
Yeah. Because you see, I guess Vertex is, you guys are focusing Series A, right? Is there any chance that Vertex would perhaps meet with seed stage companies?
Oh, sure, we do. So prior to COVID, we actually have a Technopreneur Circle, where actually founders are more than welcome to use that free co-working space. But as part and parcel of our value add to that team or the people who are in Tech Circle, we actually schedule meet the investor hours. So each of us actually try to meet with a few companies, and many of them are not quite within our sweet spot yet. But just to keep the conversation going, and if we could be of value to them, to point out the areas where they should maybe put more work on, to also connect them with people that could possibly help them. I think that's what we'll be most happy to be involved in, even if we don't take an investment stake in them.
Okay, that's good to know. So following up question, right? You mentioned what are the qualities of a founder that you look for, right, for a potential investment, and are there any important singular traits?
Yes. So when I look at the founders that we have invested with, I realize that actually they have got at least these 4 qualities, right? So one is, of course, they have to be driven. They have to know and have that energy to solve that big problem. I mentioned that we want to work with driven entrepreneurs to solve problems that are relatively big. So meaning to say that they are going to be in the long haul. They must have sufficient energy. They must take care of their own health, so that they can go for the long haul, right? So they must be driven. So discipline is important. And number 2, they must be able to articulate their vision, because if they're able to have a vision but without the wherewithal, without the execution thoughts, it's just merely an illusion, right? So they must have the ability to articulate their vision. Number 3, founders are oftentimes quite certain about how they want to achieve what they want to do. But yet there's a fine line between being gut sure and being humble enough to be coachable. So we like founders who are willing to debate with us, but at the end of the day, still must be willing to listen and digest what we have to say to them. Because after all, unfortunately, Vertex has got people who come with many years of experience. So they are better able to share with the founders on what they have seen before. Even though we're in a changing world, some things don't really change. So founders ought to be humble enough to be coachable, but yet firm enough to hold true and hold strong to what they are convinced about. And then finally, the fourth point is that they should learn to gain respect from the people that they work with. Because at the end of the day, they are responsible for the lives of the families who work with them. So when they start out, the company is actually very small. What is that culture that they want to have in that small little group? How are they able, who owns the culture, and how are they able to make sure that this cultural values transmit across teams, across geographies as they scale? So I think at the end of the day, and for them to make sure that this culture goes down the line, it means that people must respect them. So yeah, so these four qualities at least. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's the founder, right? What about a startup? Is it something you look for in a startup? I mean, aside from the sectors, right? Is it something that you look for particularly in a startup? Any specific requirements for them to draw your attention or your interest? Yeah.
Yep. So for startups, because startups are ideas, right? So again, the ideas have to be big enough. They must be ambitious enough. But more importantly, it is back to the founders, because when you bet on a startup, the MVP may be quite raw. So at the end of the day, what are you betting on? It's still down to the people. So it's still down to the founders again, right? And normally at the first meetings or so, we can kind of like sense whether or not those will be founders that we feel we can work with and who will value what we have to say. Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, right, I'm sure you have many portfolios. What would you say the top 3 common traits for some of your portfolio companies?
I did think about this for quite a while, right? What are the common traits?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, businesses, I mean, I feel that today's conversation is so people. But the truth of the matter is that businesses are run by people, right? So when businesses fail, they fail usually because of people issues. Why is it that they omitted the competitors? Well, because somebody was arrogant and they didn't want to hear that there were competition, right? Or they feel gut sure that they themselves are the best, right? And I don't know, they're just out of alignment from what they were originally set out to do, because they started to grow tentacles and they wanted to have a piece of everything. So they lost their focus. And again, there could be people who were sounding them up, but again, perhaps the management team decided not to listen to them. And then at the same time, sometimes founders have an issue with learning to let go. So this we do see in maybe the more traditional SMEs, where empowerment is such a big problem, right?
Yep.
So unfortunately, when I look at what are the common traits, I have to go back to, again, the points about people. How do the startups, how do the companies that we work with treat the people, be it their staff, we're talking about internal team, be it their customers or suppliers, the external team, or be it their investors, shareholders, then we talk about upwards. So just to give you an example of what I've observed, right? The external team, what I've noticed is that Tiny Hub, so this is one of the recent companies that we've invested into. So Tiny Hub basically provides like a B2B managed marketplace for all things agriculture in Indonesia, right? So their business proposition is that they want to ensure there's efficiency in the supply chain. That's good. But other than that, what they have done is they turn around and look at their farmers who are the reason for their existence and say, how can I help you to grow better? How can I help you to get better yield? How can I help you to maybe look for a more price competitive seeds? So they impart farming techniques, and at the same time, they do know that farmers generally are forgotten by the funding community, right? Banks fearful, don't know how to lend to them. So what Tiny Hub has done is also to actually set up a Tiny Fund, which actually provides some levels of financing to farmers. And then with the assurance that I will offtake from you whatever produce that you are able to grow. So in this process, when they look at the farmers who are the people that they work with, they help to upskill and grow the entire ecosystem. So that is a common trait, to me, a very important trait, where you are actually mindful of the people who are helping you so that you can grow your business. So that's one. Then the second one is actually internally, right? So that was an external example. The internal example would be how founders learn to grow people, learn to empower people. So we have seen instances where, yeah, we talk about stock options and so on, promotions, etc. But stock option is so long and vested, so you grow old with it, right? That's what people will say.
Yeah.
But what we have noticed is that when a founder accords somebody a founder status, a co-founder status, suddenly the psyche of the person who got promoted to become founder changes, right? And at the same time, the founders themselves suddenly come into a very uncomfortable place because they have to suddenly share this founder title with somebody else. But it speaks of a very healthy discomfort, and that they unanimously agreed that, hey, this person can actually add value to their team by calling him a co-founder.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is actually this is a company, PetSnap, which I think many of us will know. I'm super proud of them. But that was a conversation they had quite a number of years ago. So when PetSnap expanded its presence into the UK, we started interacting with this guy called Ray, right? And he's based in London. So the dialogue happened, and we were starting to see that, oh, actually Europe has got a good opportunity for patents and the patent business. And we observed the interaction, what he suggested the company should do, how he was helping the whole team to think out of the box, etc. So after about a year or two, the founder, Jeffrey, consulted with us and said, hey, I'm planning to make this guy a founding partner. And by that time, we are like so comfortable. So the board gave the A-OK and say, sure, make him a founder. And I think that of course, when he became a founder, he also exercised his options. So to me, it's like you gave that person so much recognition, and at the same time, he also contributed into the company. We are all aligned for the long haul. So this is internal, right? And then finally, when it comes to managing stakeholders, people, in terms of managing upward stakeholders, nobody likes, as an investor, nobody likes unpleasant surprises, right? So, so what we want to do for the companies is that, we will be monitoring you. We will want to have the dialogue with you so that we don't get unpleasant surprises, and then in the end, we do not tell our investors. So thankfully, our founders know that we will sit on them if we don't get our information. But it is all for the same reason, so that all of us have got clarity in terms of where the business is going. So thankfully, at the moment, in terms of shareholders, communications, we are quite okay with most of our companies, given that we are quite a big shareholder at Series A. And that again is only possible because we don't have too many companies to manage. So we can go the long haul with them. Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with you at some point. Like, the company is made of its people, and if the people are not functioning properly, it's going to be a challenging journey ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question I have is for the audience to also know, how's your current portfolio performing during this pandemic, and perhaps you can share some case studies on how they have survived or even thrive. Yeah.
Yes. So during March, right, before our government imposed the stay-home quarantine, so that was like, I think it was 17th of March or something. We had already gotten indications that China was having a massive lockdown. So we know that it's going to flow over to Southeast Asia.
Yep.
So what we did was to actually schedule a roundtable, or actually a session with all our founders in Southeast Asia and India portfolio, where we actually got our partners, those with more gray hair, to share with the founders on what they had witnessed through from 911, the dot-com bust, Asia financial crisis, global financial crisis, SARS, whatever, right? To share with the founders what they had witnessed that had not worked, or what had worked. So that when the economy bounces back when it should, then we are all better prepared for it. Because at the end of the day, the companies that stand up, that is able to stand the last, will be the ones that will survive, right? So how do you make sure you pull through? And this is a knee-jerk reaction, and we are witnessing it where investors are going to be very, very, very slow in writing checks during the March-April timeframe, because all of us do not know what's going to happen, right?
Yep.
I would say that now it seems like we are seeing some easing, but checks are still not coming as quickly as it was 12 months ago. So therefore, what do we tell the companies after that one session? we had individual sessions with each of our portfolio companies and basically worked with them on having a financial and business plan that can carry the company through for the next 15, 18, if not 24 months. So basically this means a few things where hard conversations has to happen. So they have to cut off fats, they have to be creative in retention or hiring, they have to focus on the core, and they have to focus on their customers. Yeah, and so those were the message that we constantly, like, we sounded like a broken recorder, but that was the conversation we had with our companies during those few months. And for those who were in the midst of fundraising, thankfully they were able to close, although some of them closed at a lesser amount, but all well and good, at least we managed to close. And the market then had not normalized, but companies just have to learn to adapt, right? Yeah, and then on the side of our portfolio companies, what did they do? So I'm also very proud to say that some of them, they looked at their customers. And because we have, our thesis is actually SMEs as well. So some of them actually were serving the small and medium enterprises. And these were the groups that was badly hurt. So you would have read blog posts about what StoreHub has done. So over 2 weekends, they were very quick. So the whole team sort of like hunkered down despite working in different places to develop this mobile ordering platform called Beepit that was then rolled out very quickly. This is to allow restaurants to have the ability to turn on the lights in the kitchen, to once again be able to serve the customers. And for the diners, while I can't dine in the restaurant, to still have the ability to order food from restaurants that I would love to eat from. And so there was a very strong take-up. We saw that momentum, and we were trying to encourage them to also come into Singapore. They have since rolled out Bipit to also Philippines. So that's good for them. And then for another company, back to PetSnap, right? So this is about companies being very customer focused. So when PetSnap saw that China was closing down, like everybody has to work from home, because their clients are those who are in the patent assessment space, in the government space, and you know that given the trade war, China has a big push to try to encourage innovation as well as for companies to file patents. How are people going to assess patents if they have no tools? So what PetSnap did was actually to open up the platform to say it's for free, just use it, get your work done, right? That gave them tons of goodwill. So it's like hindsight, we're very smart. But yeah, at that point in time, it was like, what can we do to make people continue to file patents and to assess patents? So when China, so they saw what happened in China, they decided, okay, let's do the same for the rest of the world. So that platform was free until end of May. But now if you are too late, it's okay. They still have 2 weeks free trial if you just want to use the platform.
Yeah, we recently did also a webinar with Jeffrey, and he did share his strategy. That was pretty smart, and yeah, we're very inspired by it as well.
Exactly. But that was because he put the customers ahead of themselves, right? So for the few months when the whole platform was for free, they really didn't earn much from the free access, you know. But it was with the customers in mind. So that was all well and good. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Then I'll just give you one last example about preparing ahead of time. So those two companies kind of like reacted to the scenario, but the third thing that you may want to consider is to prepare ahead of time for the next possible pandemic if it should come, right? So Turnkey Lender, this is a company that is providing the entire end-to-end solutions to enable digital lending. So they don't own the branding, but they own the engine behind it. So when they expanded to the US, they realized that actually there were a lot of interest in enterprises. So companies that want to roll out digital lending in a big way. So those takes a little bit of time, but at the same time, they have got those users that just want a quick solution. So what they did last year was actually to have a box solution, which is like a self-serve model. And so now when they went over to the US and when there's strong demand for digital lending, you know that the US government has rolled out a lending program, right? We can have our views on the lending program, that doesn't matter. But because of the overwhelming demand for lending solutions, people were knocking on their doors to say, hey, I need solutions. If they had to program for or customize it will take forever. So thankfully, they already thought of having box solution. So the small lightweight solution was quickly deployed, and different enterprises was able to, lending enterprises were able to kickstart the whole lending program and be and therefore was in business, so to speak. So actually for companies, it's also to think ahead of time about how to respond if and when a next crisis should happen. So think ahead of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that was very insightful. So it's 2:30 now, and like we predicted, Carmen, you have a lot of questions waiting for you.
Okay.
So let's address them, right? This is interesting. Okay, so I got a first question. Okay, this comes from Jeffrey Chua, right? How much equity stake, or a range of equity stake, do you usually take? And perhaps you could share an example of one or two successful growth story with exits.
Okay, oh, so many growth stories. Yeah, equity stake, I think it has to be meaningful. Meaningful is defined differently for different people. So some people ask us, must you take like 20%? I'll be like, well, if founder is willing to give us 20%, sure. And they're like, oh, what about if it is in the teens? Again, it's like, okay, it's really, because these are all private companies, it really depends, right, on how much we can value add and how much the company is willing to give off its shares. The thing we do not do is that we do not chase after valuation. Okay, so that is one thing we're very clear. So that's why we also don't do that many deals. So it has to be a win-win. In terms of successful companies, Pestnet will be one example of a successful company. It's more than $500 million. We are very hopeful for this company. We are looking forward to a great story for Singapore. The other company is that of Licious. Licious is actually an e-commerce company in the fresh meat space. And this is a company that started in India. So again, after we invested in them, Nichirei from Japan followed on with an investment, and Vertex Growth Fund, I mentioned this is a global mandate fund. They also then followed on by investing into the company as well. So this will be companies that we see has got extremely good traction and growth track record. Of course, if you were to measure success by exit multiples, akan datang, we will tell you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that question. Let's go to the next question. So this comes from Dr. Akila, right? So hi, Carmen, do you still invest in healthcare sector?
Yeah. So we have, we actually, it's interesting that Dr. Adabala should ask this question. So one of the new companies that invested in Fund 4 is actually in the IVF space in India. So that's again, this is a big problem, right? We see this as a big problem. We like the founders because they had done that previously, but now we are able to use technology as an enablement to know and to track when we should get the couple to come back into the clinic for certain follow-up procedures, etc. So yes, we do invest into healthcare, but not the medtech nor the biotech side. We look at more the IT deployment within the healthcare space. Yeah.
Okay. Hope that answers your question. I guess the next question we'll go with is, let me see, sorry, scrolling down. Okay, so this comes from Renee Tan. She has a question: which early stage of businesses would be a priority to Vertex, right? Business with a good database of prospects, customers, businesses that have profited, or businesses with an extension to their current offerings, etc. And is this a period where Vertex will continue to invest in 2021?
For sure, we will continue to invest because this is a new fund. We are therefore in our active investment period. So yes, for sure, we will be investing. Usually a typical venture fund is that you will do active investment for the first 3-4 years. So yes, we are smack in the active period, but having said that, we don't chase. Okay, we are also quite disciplined. So in terms of what kind of early stage business, so again, it has to be businesses with big problems to solve. So it could be a database of prospects that they are looking to go after. They might not have profited from it. And again, while the vision is important, the execution is more critical, right? So you can have a fantastic visionary, but if you're executing and you have some hiccups along the way, the question is really, can you quickly turn around and learn from what is the shortcoming, shortfall, and fix it along the way. So we grow with the founders. So they don't really need to have a good database, but they need to know and articulate who are the types, the personas that they are going after. Yeah, and if it is an extension to the current offering, then they might not be so much of an early stage company. They could well be one that has got some traction already and now growing a second leg. But if they haven't quite firmed up the first business proposition and they're growing into the second or the third, then I think they may want to reconsider that, because management's focus will be quite split and thinned out as a result. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. This comes from Constantine. Would you consider investment in entities that are currently not operating out of Asia, but is looking to establish a headquarter in Asia in order to close their target markets? Yeah.
Yeah, so we will invest into holding level companies. So this means that the companies ought to have their headquarters in in Southeast Asia or India, right? That is where they ought to have their headquarters. If they are looking at setting up their headquarters in Southeast Asia, we can talk, but at the same time, we are also mindful of like how much of their resources will actually be willing to relocate to Southeast Asia, right? Because at the end of the day, we do need to make sure that their teams are close to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next question comes from Ms. Bernice Ong. What advice would you give to startups who are pitching to VCs? Well, just in general, yeah.
That again, what they are looking at doing has to be a big enough story, and that they must know what is the end goal in mind for themselves, right? Are they looking at just merely flipping the company? So those are the things that we like less. We like companies, we like founders who have plans to grow the business. We don't like them to flip the business. So we have seen companies where they are very happy to say that, I plan to exit in 2 years. Then we're like, how are you growing a company in 2 years? Yeah. So I think so I think when they are pitching to investors, they ought to know what kind of investors they're speaking to. If the investors are those kind who are okay with flipping, well and good. But if they're looking at investors who are looking at growing the businesses, then maybe their pitch ought to be a bit different. So my sense is that they ought to look at knowing a little bit about the VCs to speak to beforehand.
Okay. Hope that answers your question, Bernice. So we got a question from Gamal. So we got a chance approached by Vertex Indonesia, and their startup is involved with the waste management industry, and they're looking for some sort of investment. It's MVP ready to launch, beta test in April, and because of the pandemic, they postponed it a little bit, right? So I guess they wanted to know what does Vertex Southeast Asia and India think about this waste management sector at the moment.
So again, we are basically a company that looks at technology-enabled or technology-backed proposition. So waste management comes in a lot of forms. So again, not too clear what areas of it, because it could mean the collections, it could mean recycling. So probably that one we have to take it offline. But yeah, we look at solutions that are tech-enabled.
Okay. Next question is from Debbie Lee. The question is Vertex interested in COVID-19 growth positive companies? COVID-19 growth positive. Wow, I'm also.
So the way we have also been looking at propositions that is because of COVID-19, right? And our question is this going to be just a temporary measure, or is this going to be for life, for change? So example, Zoom calls, like what we are doing now, is it likely to continue after COVID? We believe it is, but we also believe that people will still like to do physical meetings, physical meetups, but certainly complemented by Zoom, right, or video conferencing. In the same way, things like food delivery, do we expect this to be a long-term behavioral change? I certainly do think that food delivery is already quite behavioral changing. So then the question is, what else can we see that is going to be around for the long haul? So we think that one of the things that came up was food security, right? Food security, especially for the vulnerable Singapore, is really a concern. So I think Temasek has actually done enough things to tell all of us that they are looking into it. But from a venture side, what are some of the opportunities that Vertex should look at when it comes to food security? Are there even platforms that we can consider investing into? So that's one. The second one, I think enough has been said about it, is in the healthcare space. Because of COVID, people are scared to go to hospital, whatever, and so you have got telemedicine coming in. So I believe that telemed is also going to be a game changer. Then the question is, are they going to, but however, telemedicine currently is still quite challenged, again, from the perspective of whether it's sustainable, whether it's going to be profitable, etc. But it's still early days. We will still see how it plays out. So the question is really, are this going to be long-term theories, or will they go back to normal after COVID? And human beings have short-term memory, right? So will we forget about this whole episode after some time?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Kevin. Kevin Reddy. So, which high growth sectors in India is Vertex interested in giving or focusing on, right? As India is growing to be one of the largest economy in the world.
India is a very interesting country, very interesting. We see actually quite a number of the B2B enterprise solutions actually come from India. So they have got a very rich pool of experts who have spent enough time in the valley and have decided to come back to India to make good. So I do see India as being very strong in the B2B enterprise solution space. So I'm not sure whether that helps to answer Kevin's question, but they're actually very strong in B2B enterprise. On the consumer side of the house, you have got Zomato's, you have got the food delivery side. Those are challenging sectors, but they are still very big. So once if you're able to penetrate to tier 2, even the top tier cities, it's massive. The population is massive. Then the question is, how can you turn this to become a profitable business opportunity? But if not, the consumer side of the house is also very interesting because you have got a huge population. So to that effect, we have also invested into a social commerce company called Glow Road in India, and that looks at providing commerce. So less of e-commerce because people question the trustworthiness of platforms, but commerce into the second, third, fourth tier cities using people that you know as the channels of distribution. So and Glow Road is also growing very well, right? So to me, India is a very interesting country, strong growth, definitely.
Okay. Another question for another country. This is for Myanmar. So this comes from Kun. I'm sorry if I pronounce the name wrong. Kun Shui Pio. Your thoughts on Myanmar PE/VC industry? Does PE institutional investors see Myanmar as an interesting place since fintech is a booming sector in Myanmar?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I can't comment on PE, what they think about Myanmar, because we are not in the PE space. But for Vertex Ventures, we look at the key Southeast Asian markets for now. So we have not really ventured into Myanmar, Cambodia, nor Laos. However, our portfolio companies, if they are looking at expanding into the CLMB markets, we are with them. But as a fund, we are not quite ready to look into these few countries yet.
Okay. All right, we actually have a lot of questions left, but I think time's up. So please submit your questions in. We'll send it. We'll try our best to answer these questions in the follow-up article that we're going to do with Vertex Ventures Southeast Asia and India. Again, so thank you so much, Carmen, for doing this with us.
My pleasure.
It was a highly engaging session, and I hope the audience have some takeaways from this. I just want to do for another mention about the pro membership, right? We have about 250 investors like Vertex, Southeast Asia and India, who are looking to connect with startups, early stage startups, for investments ranging from pre-seed to Series B rounds. So please check out our membership program on our e27.co website. Next, I'm going to go to Sharon, who's going to present next. All right. So for next week, we'll be chatting with Kmok Hu, a managing partner of Gobi Southeast Asia. So please make sure to register for the same. Okay, something different. So for the last few weeks, we ran a program to connect startups with opportunities working with corporates in Southeast Asia, seeking partnerships and ways to solve their existing business challenges. So on August 7th, 1 p.m. Singapore time, we're going to have an awesome open innovation spotlight to showcase 7 startups for funding, market access, and partnership opportunities. So I've shared the information here. Please feel free to RSVP if this is something of interest to you. Again, so this is our handle, E27. If you'd like to reach out to us, E27.co on Twitter, on Facebook, and Instagram, this is where this is our handles. Sorry, I forgot to ask you, Carmen, how should the audience reach out to you if they have any questions?
They can certainly drop us an email. I believe we can share the link after this this chat. And yeah, we have got a comms as well as Hello Asia at Vertex Ventures. So you can reach us there. If not, then it's about looking for me on LinkedIn.
Okay. Yeah, so make sure not to drown your inbox too much.
yeah.
Right.
They can certainly send to communications@vertexholdings.com. Yeah.
Okay, Vertex Communications. Okay,
No,
never mind. We'll share the link later. We'll share the link later. All right. Thank you. And after the webinar, we'll send out a short survey. Please take your time to let us know what are the topics that you want us to cover or other VCs that you want us to feature next on the Meet the VCs. And we'll be also sharing the emails like Vertex comms email, as well as a registration link to the Open Innovation Spotlight that's happening soon. Again, so thank you, Vertex Ventures Southeast Asia and India, and especially you, Carmen, for taking the time to do this with us. We thank you, everybody, for tuning in with us, and hope you have a good rest of the day. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carmen. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.